Good morning, my beloved brothers and sisters. It is another beautiful day to fellowship with one another. Before we begin our Sunday school lesson, I want to say Happy New Month to you, Alan, those listening to this lesson. Last Sunday, we talked about parenting in a godly family. To really understand today's lesson, I will urge our followers on social media to check for the part 1 of this lesson. So in continuation of the remaining 3 elements every parent must adopt during godly parenting is Element 2. Breathe image. You must establish your child's identity in God's image. Loving and caring for our children is a natural impulse for most parents, but helping them establish a godly identity is very much a matter of choice. Children need structure and discipline to enter into God's ways and take on His image, and this requires the structure and discipline of ourselves first. Solomon says that parents need to be like warriors, pointing our children like arrows towards a firm target, which is godliness. Psalms 127 chapter 4-5. Paul the Apostle says, "Bring them, specifically children, up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord." Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4. Note that this is not just any discipline or instruction, but the type that comes from and leads one to the Lord. Parents can do this consciously in a variety of ways. One, lead by godly example. My mother smoked, I began to smoke. My father drank alcohol every day, I began to drink alcohol. My parents went to nightclubs as entertainment, I began to hang around in these type of places as well. When I became a Christian, however, I had to unlearn, that is, to repent from these habits in order to live the godly life I had been called on to live as a Christian. If you, the parent, pursue a godly image, your children will follow. Children can be taught theory about godliness from Sunday school or Christian summer camp, but they learn the practical side of godly living from watching you, the parent. The old saying is still true today: children don't do what you say, they do what you do. 2. Establish godly traditions. It is amazing to note that while they were in the desert, the Jews' entire life experience revolved around their worship of God, preparing sacrifices daily, moving and reassembling the tabernacle, feasts, prayer times, teaching, and the Sabbath each week, to mention a few of their religious responsibilities. These were given in order to chip away at the sinful shell that living in a pagan land for 4 centuries had produced, and mold a people into a godly nation. The work of breathing a godly image into our children is similar in approach. On a daily basis, we mold them with rules and discipline according to biblical principles and morals, speaking the truth in love, disciplining in fairness without anger, affirming their individual personality and unique spiritual gifts, and encouraging personal devotion and prayer, just to name a few. Little by little, the tedious everyday work of molding them into spiritually minded and spiritually sensitive people is accomplished. In a larger context, we also begin to see markers that provide meaning and practice to their spirituality. For example, regular attendance at worship, summer camp, youth rallies, and family dinners at Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. Some families even create traditions that are spiritual in nature and unique to their own family. For example, our family had a devotional each evening when together at family vacations. We need to establish spiritual habits and traditions that celebrate and constantly remind children that we are God's people. Element 3. Breathe forgiveness. Forgive your child as God has forgiven you. Colossians chapter 3 verse 13. God is a God of mercy, and to breathe the Spirit of Him into your child is to help him experience forgiveness. If a child does not learn this key virtue, that child will have difficulty learning about God's mercy and will struggle with relationships later on. Part of this training includes 1. Saying, "I forgive you" when they sin. 2. Not holding on to their past wrongs. 3. Model saying, "I am sorry, please forgive me," because sometimes the parent is in the wrong. 4. Listen to their angry feelings and do not become angry because they are angry. 5. Discuss biblical examples of forgiveness. For example, Prodigal Son, Luke 15:11-32. This is a wonderful teaching or imprinting opportunity. 6. Train them in the Christian process of forgiveness, talking it out. 7. Accepting responsibility. 8. Asking for forgiveness or offering forgiveness. 9. Receiving forgiveness. 10. Reconciliation. 11. Renewal, that is, letting go of the past. God's ultimate purpose in bringing Christ to earth was to offer us forgiveness. A child who is not schooled in the meaning and experience of giving and receiving forgiveness is incomplete spiritually. Element 4. Breathe enthusiasm. The fourth element necessary in breathing spiritual life into you, child, is enthusiasm, what the Bible calls joy. The English word enthusiasm comes from the Greek word ethnos, which literally means in God. It is what Nehemiah had as he led the Israelites in the hard, dangerous, and discouraging work of rebuilding the wall around Jerusalem. He exhorted them, saying, "The joy of the Lord is your strength." Nehemiah chapter 8 verse 10. In the same way, Paul said to the church, "Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say, rejoice." Philippians chapter 4 verse 4. Enthusiasm or joy is the pleasure we experience when our hearts are in tune with the Lord. Children need to learn that their faith is the cause and the source of joy in their lives, not simply adherence to rules, and certainly not acquiring things or money. Again, there are practical ways parents can cultivate the spiritual environment around and in their children so that they can actually feel the enthusiasm produced directly by their growing faith. 1. Model enthusiastic faith and service. There is a component of joy that is essentially viral. You catch it from someone else. If there is no enthusiasm for spiritual things coming from the parents, there will not be any from the children either. They catch it from you too. Encourage Christian friendship. As children grow, much of their behavior and attitudes will be influenced by their friends. While you can, breathe into their lives every opportunity for them to bond with other Christians. Most congregations provide various Christian activities, camps, rallies, and at some places Christian school. Encourage them to offer hospitality to other Christians, and most importantly, let them know that you expect them to marry a Christian one day. 3. Include them in ministry. Just like you encourage them to help you bake a cake or build a birdhouse using grown-up tools and equipment, let them know the joy that comes from working alongside you in ministry, like visiting the sick, cleaning the church building, preparing a baby shower, etc. Nothing bonds parent and child more in the spirit and joy of Christ than serving together in His name. A child who equates spirituality with joy will be inoculated against the counterfeit happiness promised by the sinful practices of this world. Summary: what we are aiming to do as parents is to have our children internalize the image of God that we are modeling and teaching them. William Gaultier, quoted in Gary Thomas' book, Sacred Parenting, page 189, puts it this way: as parents, we want to try to pass on the love, identity, forgiveness, and enthusiasm of God to our children so that they can internalize it for themselves and then share it with others. This spiritualization will affect how they see themselves as forgiven, loving, godly, and joyful, and how they will see and treat others, which will prepare them to breathe God's life into their own children one day. Remember, those will be your grandchildren. May God help us guide our children in the way pleasing unto God. I thank you all for listening, and I'm sure you have learned a lot. Do well to join us next Sunday as we discuss another beautiful lesson. Do you have any question or comment? Kindly drop it in the comment section and share the message with family and friends. Thank you, and God bless you.